welcome to the second of our Lunch and Learn series for ADHD and Dyslexia Awareness Month. This week we're talking about imposter syndrome, something that we know a lot about.
We do, and we're so excited to be having this kōrero with Bex Bell, who's an expert in imposter syndrome and has written a book, which we're going to share on the screen. Inner critic to inner coach, how to heal the imposter syndrome, end self-sabotage and own your greatness. So that doesn't that sound fabulous?
So Bex knows all about imposter syndrome, and there's a lot of crossover between the work that you do, Bex, and the work that we do in the neurodiversity space. There's a lot of neurodivergent people suffer from imposter syndrome, and so we thought it'd be really good for us to have a conversation about the sort of the genesis of imposter syndrome and where it comes from, and then have a look at some things that we can do about it. So first of all, we just wanted to start off by asking you what sparked your interest initially in imposter syndrome. And welcome, by the way.
And welcome.
Thanks, everybody. Kia ora. It's awesome to be here with you. And you'll have to shut me up after a while because I could talk all day about this topic. Because I guess what sparked my interest, it's come from many years of deep lived experience. So just feeling like a raging imposter since probably my first memory would be 5 years old when I was doing ballet. Yep, that young. And sort of objectively speaking, I did really well at ballet. I got good grades in my exams and so on, but the whole time I just felt like I wasn't as good as the other ballerinas. So they were kind of actually good, and I was just fluking my success somehow.
Wow.
So it honestly was that young. And then that feeling just followed me right through my schooling and really hit a peak when I was at university studying for completing my PhD in forensic psychology. And I remember talking to my supervisor one day about this experience I had of like, I just never feel like I know what I'm doing. And it was actually her after our meeting that forwarded an academic article to me. And in the subject line, it just said, "Just so you know, you're not alone." And it was an academic article about the imposter syndrome. And my mind was blown because I thought, oh my God, first of all, it's not just me. And second, there's all the psychology behind it. And that sort of kicked the quest off to understand everything I could about what this damn thing was and why it happened, because I just understood how sort of detrimental and limiting and stressful it can be for people.
So it is absolutely, yeah.
And there's so many parallels there with discovering you're neurodiverse later in life, because that's what a lot of neurodivergent people experience, is that feeling that you just can't do the same as others and you're not as good as other people. So there's a real similarity there, isn't there?
Absolutely. So would you say that, Bex, that imposter syndrome is the same as low confidence, or is it something different? Is there a difference between confidence and imposter syndrome?
Yeah, there is an important difference, because low confidence is more sort of generic or global. It can relate to things like, just generally not feeling good enough or like we can't do something. It might relate to how confident we feel socially, or maybe in terms of our body image. Whereas imposter syndrome is its own specific flavor. It's very specifically about not feeling good enough or feeling fraudulent in the context of sort of competent, in terms of our competence. So it's often triggered in achievement-related context specifically. So that's why we often feel it most sort of at work, when we're studying. So anywhere where our competence and our skills and knowledge and capability could be up for judgment by others, that's where it tends to kind of bubble away. So like in my example, ballet, so constantly being scrutinized in terms of my performance and competence. University, constantly being scrutinized, and it's followed me. It continues to follow me through my work life as well. So it's very specifically around the beliefs and ideas that we have about what competence means.
That's so interesting, isn't it? And in the work that we do, we hear that sort of thing quite a lot, that sort of lack of, and I'm going to use the word confidence, but it's confidence in that capability setting, as you're talking about, in a workplace setting, and that belief that you're not able to do the same things that everyone else can do easily, things that other people find easy, I find really, really difficult. And that is where that imposter syndrome kind of starts, is that I'm just not the same as everybody else, and I'm not capable of doing the same things or as quickly. Maybe I can do them, but they might take me a really, really long time to be able to do them, which means that I'm just not really good at at them and I'm not capable of doing them.
And I think it's
absolutely, yeah.
Sorry, Bex, I think it's interesting that you're saying it's specifically to do with, or it often comes up with academic or that time where you have to perform. Because what I would say is, as a neurodivergent woman, I've felt that in many areas, not just when I need to perform academically, right? When I need to get to a meeting on time, when I need to speak well, it's that same, it's not performance anxiety, but it's that same feeling as when you're doing an academic or you're being ranked against someone else. Often I'll find that in general life. So it's interesting, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah, sorry, I was just going to say to you, I actually felt it in hospital when I became a first-time mother. I was like, I'm an imposter mother. Everyone else knows how to be a mum here, but I don't. But kind of similar, your mothering is often up for judgment by others, your competence as a mother. So it's kind of similar, crosses over.
It's really interesting, isn't it?
Especially that competence word,
yeah, absolutely. It's almost like the words that's coming through for me is like judgment, isn't it? It's like where people will be having an opinion on how good you are at something and how that might internally affect you and your ability to then perform when needed, because I think we were thinking about the concept of perfectionism and procrastination, and these are things that are really common for ADHD and dyslexic women. And do you think that those feed into imposter syndrome as well?
They absolutely do. So with perfectionism, what research, Valerie Young, if anyone hasn't heard of her work, I'd highly recommend checking out Valerie Young's book, The Secret Thoughts of Successful Women and Men. It's been amended. She's spent about, 40 years of her career investigating imposter syndrome. And her research shows that one of the kind of key beliefs that differ between people who feel like imposters and those who don't is a perfectionistic kind of belief about competence, meaning we expect that to be truly competent, I should do things perfectly. Therefore, if I stumble along the way, if I make mistakes and screw things up, even if there was generally a successful outcome to whatever I was doing, we consider that, no, not good enough. I fluked it, because a truly competent person wouldn't have screwed it up like I did. So those perfectionistic beliefs about competence sort of set us up with such unrealistically high standards for ourselves that it sparks a lot of anxiety to even start the damn thing, and then enter procrastination as a way to try and manage that anxiety. So that's where that plays in. And then what ends up happening is, again, if we've procrastinated on something for ages, but then we finally get it across the line, and we might even get some really good feedback about that, we feel a sense of temporary relief for about 5 minutes that like, oh, phew, I did it and I got some good feedback. But then we start rationalizing that like, oh, but I left it until the last minute. So I just got lucky. Like I got lucky this time, but what's going to happen next time? I might not be as lucky. Therefore, see, I'm not actually good at it. I'm just an imposter who got lucky. So both of those things really are sort of perfectionism and procrastination are key features of what's called the imposter cycle, which is what I just explained. And that is what keeps us stuck in that loop of sort of thoughts and feelings leading to behavior, which then leads to us rationalizing that we are indeed an imposter. And it just keeps going every time a new sort of achievement related task is asked of us.
That's so interesting, isn't it? And I think, we a lot of the work that we do with our clients is around self-beliefs and how you build those self-beliefs layer upon layer upon layer upon layer over time. And I feel that's sort of exactly what you're talking about, right? You get stuck in that loop, you get stuck in that cycle, and then, excuse me, then it almost becomes a belief that this is who I am and this is how I operate and this is what it means to be me, rather than it's just, my current experience and I can change it. So
yes.
That's a very neurodivergent experience.
Yeah, and I like the way that we do a very similar thing, that your thoughts and feelings drive your behaviors, which then drive your beliefs, which then drive your thoughts and feelings, which then drive your behaviors, which then drive your beliefs, and so it goes. So because especially when you're neurodivergent, obviously we have so many thoughts, and our thoughts are more we're more connected to our thoughts emotionally than neurotypical people just because of our brain wiring. So it's really interesting. It's almost like our thoughts and feelings are supercharged.
Which is tough, because when they're supercharged, they feel like truth and fact. So when we have that, I'm an imposter, it's sort of like, I think I'm an imposter, I feel like an imposter, therefore I truly must be an imposter. And it's hard not to latch on to that.
Yeah, absolutely. And to just believe it, and to then operate in that space of, I'm not able to, because, I'm just not good enough, or I'm just, again, that's back to that, I'm not as good as other people, I'm not as capable as other people. And that
and fraudulent. Fraudulent. The fraudulent part is a really key thing here with imposter syndrome. It's that perceived fraudulence, despite a lot of evidence to suggest otherwise. So there's heaps of evidence to say we know what we're doing and we can do it, but we just never feel like we can.
It's that feeling, like you say, of fluking it or being lucky. And what's coming to my mind is a story of when Vanessa passed her qualifications to be a Davis facilitator, and you worked for years to get those qualifications.
It takes about 2 years of studying.
And what happened when you got the email to say that you'd passed?
I thought I'd fluked it, and I thought the lady had only passed me because she liked me. And then I'd managed to fool her by being nice and funny. Genuinely, that's what I thought.
After years of studying.
Yeah.
I wholeheartedly identify with that, because that's why I also thought that I was accepted into honours, because I thought, they just need more Māori students to fill out the role. I'm a Māori student. So and same thing with my PhD. My thesis was only good. It only got good, examiners' reports because my supervisor helped me with it. Of course, like it's pretty much her work, not even mine. So forgetting the years of study that I did to get there. So that's a perfect, beautiful example. And I love that. I love sharing these because I think it helps to hear what goes on in other people's minds, because we think it's just us.
Absolutely, Bex, you're so right. And when we run our Resilient Minds program, which is our small group coaching program, the most powerful part is hearing other people's stories, hearing other people that are experiencing the same challenges as you are. And that's why we do these lunch and learns as well, so that we can share the experiences, and we can share for people that are out there not really knowing what's going on, or masking or hiding what's going on, that there are other people out there that are having the same experiences that you are. And sometimes just hearing that is a relief. You can just drop your shoulders a bit and think, it's not just me.
I'm not alone.
Absolutely. So that's, like you say, we could talk all day about imposter syndrome, but I guess we better move along. So we're going to sort of think about some actions now. So we've sort of explored why imposter syndrome pops up and what it might look like and how it might feel. But then, what can you actually do about it when those thoughts pop up, like, I don't deserve it, or I'm not good enough, or it was a fluke, or just luck? What is something that you can do to reframe that?
Yeah, I think the one thing I'd say is don't even try to get rid of these thoughts and feelings. I think we can really set ourselves up for disappointment and kind of more shame and more self-criticism and more self-judgment when we try to get rid of these thoughts and feelings. There's so many good reasons why we have them in the first place, and a lot of it is to do with the beliefs that we have about competence. We can talk about what those are. There's 5 key beliefs, and you can look those up in Valerie Young's work. They're really helpful to understand. But then we also need to give ourselves a bit of grace that we're often operating in environments or contexts that trigger these thoughts and feelings too. So, for example, as a neurodivergent woman, if we don't see ourselves reflected in the context we're operating in, of course we're going to feel like an imposter that doesn't belong. Or if we're the only woman at a board table and amongst a bunch of men, of course we're going to feel like an imposter. So, there's so many reasons why this happens. And if we can just create a little bit of space for those thoughts and feelings to be there without panicking about them and without thinking, well, they're still there, therefore it must be true. That in itself is really powerful, just to release its grip on you a wee bit. So, so I would say, I think of the 3 C's. So get curious for a start. So when you notice these thoughts coming up, just investigate what's going on for me right now. Like, what kind of context am I in, and how might that be triggering what I'm thinking and feeling? What beliefs about competence am I latching onto right now? Like, am I expecting myself to be perfect? Am I expecting that I should have figured it out quickly and effortlessly by now? Am I expecting myself to figure this all out on my own? These are some of the common imposter beliefs that feed into the experience. And then I would say the second C is about coaching yourself through those moments with compassion. About, it's just about, oh, hey, like literally I talk to myself. It's okay, Bex. Like, of course you feel like an imposter. You have for years. That's okay. There's people around that you want them to think that you're competent. So that's going to spark those thoughts and feelings. It's okay. Like, no need to panic. And it's thinking about talking to yourself in those moments like you would a best friend who was feeling distressed because they weren't feeling good enough. What would you say to them? And then turn that in on yourself and share those compassionate words with yourself. That's what I call inner coaching. That's where the inner coach part comes from in my book. And then the third C would be about courage. So it really is just about feeling the imposteriness and doing it anyway, because those thoughts and feelings might actually be with you forever. But that's okay, because then they don't need to be treated like some kind of fact or rule or standard or anything. They're just thoughts and feelings, and they feel threatening sometimes, and they feel like the truth, but they don't actually need to automatically kind of lead to the behaviors that we do or don't do because we feel them.
Yeah. Gosh, there's so much there that we could there's so much intersectionality there with the work that we do. I'm thinking specifically about, we talk about the 3 A's: awareness, acceptance, and action. So it's like being aware of what's going on, understanding why it's happening. That's kind of like the starting point for all of the work that we do with our clients, is really understanding and knowing why it's happening, and then accepting it and just knowing that it's happening, and that it's just part of being you, and that it's okay. And then the final part is action. It's like, for you, that maybe that's the courageous part. It's just taking that action. Then once you've got the awareness and the acceptance, you have the capacity to do something about it, whatever that something is. I think and people always want to jump into that action part, Bex. We always find is that everyone wants to go to the end, and we're like, no, let's just move back and do the first couple of bits first, and then we're in a much better position to actually take some action. So I think there's a lot of crossover between the two.
And I love the compassion part of that, right? Yes. And the fact that you're actually saying, don't try and stop all those thoughts and feelings, because I think that's the thing, right? We kind of think that, to not have imposter syndrome, I need to, completely switch off that part of myself, right? But the reality is that part of yourself has been curated over years. Like you said, you started feeling it when you were 5. And I know many neurodivergent people have experiences from their schooling, because that's the first time that they're like, well, everyone else can read and I can't, or everyone else can spell and I can't, or whatever it is. So I think it's really good advice. You don't have to switch them off, right? It's just kind of name curiosity, I think was your first one, wasn't it? And that compassion part is really important. And that's our acceptance piece, right? Yeah. It's a part of who you are. And once you accept it, then it stops triggering you and destabilizing you. And I kind of feel like there's that similarity to being compassionate with yourself.
Yeah, I love that word, compassion. I just think we are so hard on ourselves, especially we find, like, women and men as well, neurodivergent men who are in the world of work, who are like judging themselves, and they're harsh on themselves, and they're comparing themselves. I mean, comparison is just horrific, isn't it? It's so damaging, and we really see that in the work that we do as well. It's just it's really interesting. I think that how things can change if you can be just a little bit compassionate to yourself. And I love that. What would you say to a friend? Say it to yourself.
I think that's the easiest way to figure out how to be compassionate, because we're so good doing it outwardly. But it's just when we think about, what would I say to myself if I was encouraging myself? We get stuck because we're not used to encouraging ourselves. So if we can leverage the skill that we already have, which is usually outward, and then just do a bit of a U-turn, bring it back here, then we're sorted. We know what to.
And I love that that's the journey that you take, right, from an inner critic to an inner coach, because that's is such an important skill to learn, I think. And the earlier you can learn it in your career or your life, I think it really sets you up well to be able to have a more joyful, more easeful life. You know, it doesn't mean that things are always going to be easy or good or you'll never feel challenged. But I think, yeah, turning that inner critic into an inner coach is a really powerful thing to be able to do. So, you know, I would encourage people, if you haven't read Bex's book, then, you know, have a look at it. And I'm going to be fully transparent. I'm going to go and buy it as well, Bex, because I haven't read it yet, but I will.
We will. Absolutely. Definitely. Because I think it's very interesting how much crossover there is between the work you're doing and the work that we're doing in that neurodivergent space. So yeah, I think excuse me, there's a lot of crossover. So thinking, I mean, we've talked a little bit about imposter syndrome and work and how that can be a place where it really does show up. You know, I think especially for neurodivergent people, I think the world of work can be extremely stressful, which is why if you're ADHD, you're 500% more likely to be an entrepreneur. So, you know, a lot of ADHD people will not be in the world of work, go and work for themselves instead, because it provides that flexibility. I mean, that comes with its own challenges, obviously. But I think that the world of work is extremely challenging for neurodivergent people. And I think imposter syndrome is a place where it shows up probably quite a lot. And I guess it depends on the individual. But, you know, if someone's a leader or a manager of someone, how might they be able to recognize if someone's suffering from imposter syndrome or those imposter feelings? Are there some signs or some things that we can look out for?
Yes, absolutely. So that we've kind of touched on some of them so far in terms of perfectionism. So that's a key one. So, you know, maybe things like staying late to get things right, endless revisions, sometimes avoiding delegation because we feel like, you know, I don't want to burden anyone, and I'll do it. Over preparation is a massive one as well. So that's another way that we compensate for feeling like a not good enough imposter would be to over prepare. So we sort of dot every I, cross every T, so that we're never caught out like not knowing something. So, and obviously you can already see how much just these things alone would start to kind of compromise people's well-being. So that's another thing that you would see as a leader, is that, you know, people might be looking pretty exhausted. You might notice they're sending you emails at 10 o'clock at night. You would also see things like, so a massive part of imposter syndrome that drives it is our tendency to discount achievements. So I call it the thank you but tendency, where you might get some good feedback. Someone will say to you, "Hey, great job on that project or that report. Oh, thank you, but you know, it was a team effort." Or thank you, but you know, insert here. So that reluctance to take credit and downplaying wins would be another sign to look out for. Flying under the radar is another one. So that's, I find a lot of people who feel impostery, again, you would expect them to put their hand up confidently for stretch opportunities because they look so amazing, and they are amazing, but they don't feel like it. Therefore, they hang back. They won't put their hand up for those things, even though they're overqualified and could do it, you know, on their head. Also, a reluctance to ask for help, because one of, like we talked about before, I might have mentioned, one of the key beliefs that feed into this experience is the soloist belief. So feeling like we should, you know, truly competent people should be able to figure it out on their own. Therefore, if I don't, and if I need to ask for help, clearly I'm an imposter that doesn't know what they're doing. So we don't like asking for help. We don't want to admit that we can't figure it out in 5 seconds and do it perfectly. So that's another biggie. And possibly another one too to consider is sort of over-identification with work. So, you know, if something doesn't go well at work, it will be catastrophic, because to us, you know, when we've got those perfectionist beliefs, it's like, no, not just I've failed at this thing, but just like I'm a complete failure. I'm incompetent. And, you know, it might lead to us tapping out, you know, like, oh, no, I'm just not cut out for this, and off we go. You know? So it's, those are important things, I think. Yeah.
Oh, gosh, that's a really comprehensive list.
And some really good kind of signals there for managers or colleagues to be aware of, because, and I think that thank you but is a really important one. You know, I know for me, and I think we could do a whole nother session, I'm sure, but there's the whole tall poppy syndrome, right, as well. But it's that inability to go, yeah, I did a good job. And actually, you know, yes, I was really good at that or whatever. So I think that thank you, but is quite a subtle one, but probably one that a lot of people would see, I would say.
I think so. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we definitely see that even in the work that we do. You know, someone's done a bit of, we're doing coaching with them and they've done a good job at doing their reflections or whatever, there will always be, oh, thank you, but you know, there's always some kind of mitigation as to why they've done a good job. It's not, it doesn't come naturally to say thanks and leave it at that, you know. It's like receiving a compliment though, isn't it? You always say, oh, I know, I bought it at the op shop, or I got it on sale.
Yeah, I know. I know. We're pretty good at the thank you buts. But I think you can still. So yes, if it was a team effort, maybe it wasn't just you that did a good job, but you can still, it's about kind of, in order to start internalizing success and achievements in our own competence, we can do both. We can sort of acknowledge, yes, it was a team effort. And so rather than but, and I worked really hard too. You know, my effort was imperfect. There were mistakes along the way. But you know, overall I was happy with XYZ parts. So it's just about not being so black and white about it, but just, you know, finding the nuances of like, actually, what did I learn? Even if I learned it perfectly. What progress did I make? Even if it took me longer than somebody else. You know, who cares? That's how our mind works. We take as long as we need. So we've got to pay attention to that stuff. We've got to rest our mind on it, and we've actually got to intentionally celebrate it. Or else this negativity bias in our mind that the inner critic loves will never let us pay attention to the good stuff.
Oh gosh, Bex, there's so many thoughts in my head. You know, really as a society, we are so geared up for that. Everybody has to do things within a certain time in a certain way. And I was just thinking back, you know, my dyslexic son didn't walk till quite late, right? So it starts even then. You get a little book, your baby should be here at this stage, here at this stage. I mean, right from the beginning, you know, we're kind of set up as a society that we need to be meeting these milestones, you know? Anyway, I'm not going to go off on that tangent. I'm going to rein in my ADHD brain. I feel like this might be the beginning of many conversations, Bex, because I think it would be great to explore some of these things in more depth. And just look at that similarity between neurodivergent individuals and imposter syndrome, because I know it runs deep in many of us and many of our people.
Absolutely, it does. Well, sure, yeah. So, you know, you've given us some really good things to look out for, and I love that concept of coaching yourself. But if just, you know, just to sort of close up, if someone's watching this and they're finding they're really resonating with it, is there sort of something that they can do like right now? What's one small little thing that they might be able to do today just to make themselves feel a little less impostery, to use your words?
So go and buy your book and then
and then I think it's just simple stuff like maybe creating a way to remind yourself about anything you've heard today that's really landed. So I like, for example, you might put a little post-it on your laptop here that says, you know, oh my God, I feel like an imposter. Okay. So just a reminder, you know, it's simple. It's sort of like, I don't need to freak out about that. It's kind of like me and everybody else that feels like an imposter. Or just, it might be a reminder like, what are you believing about competence right now? Just like little ways to coach yourself through and just to bring it to your awareness that it doesn't need to be the big threatening, suffocating thing that it feels like sometimes. To be honest, some days it will. You know, we can know every Jedi mind trick in the book, but some days we'll be horrendously triggered and none of this will work. I think we have to be realistic about that. But that's okay. It's all part of the journey too. But it's just those simple reminders that will just kind of circuit break you out of the rabbit hole, or before you go down the rabbit hole, to just be like, it's okay. It's kind of the compassionate acceptance piece.
I love it, Bex.
Yeah, that's so good.
Well, I think that's out of time. So Bex, thank you so much for this korero. I feel like there were so many little gems in there.
I know.
And it was really good to hear your process, the 3 C's, and just those little tips at the end, I think, as well. And just that acceptance that actually there are going to be some days where you feel like an imposter, and that's okay. You know, we always say there's some days where your ADHD or dyslexia is going to be worse than others. Doesn't mean your life's a failure. It's just some days, you know, it creates more havoc than others.
Yeah.
So I think that compassion piece for me is the really main point.
I agree.
That certainly I'm going to take away. And I think we've both learned some things
we
on
have.
this, haven't we?
I might have heard myself in quite a lot of what you're saying.
Me too, continually.
I know, right?
Yeah, no, which has been amazing. So yeah, thank you so much, Bex, for joining us today. We really had a great conversation, enjoyed speaking to you, and thanks for sharing your expertise so freely with us. We really appreciate that.
Yeah. And
absolute pleasure. I hope it helped, and I hope it helps whoever's listening to know that you're not alone. And please, if anyone ever wants to reach out with insights or questions or whatever, I'm always here and I love to talk about this.
Thank you.
Excellent.
Thanks.
We'll put a link to your remix coaching, so that if people do want to look into that more or the book, they can find you there.
Yeah. Thanks.
Wonderful.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye.